What's up, coaches? This is the second part of a two-part episode that I recorded with former NFL and college coach turned author and leadership speaker, Evan Burke. In your book, you talk about fixed mindset versus growth mindset. How do we, as high school and youth coaches, blend fixed mindsets with growth mindset players? And how can we transform a player who has a fixed mindset into a player who has a growth mindset?
Yeah, one of the books that I wish I had read at the beginning of my coaching career, and unfortunately didn't read until the end of my coaching career, is a book called Mindset by Carol Dweck. And it's just a fantastic book on building growth mindset, whether you're a parent or a teacher or a coach or a manager of a team. And that in part was part of the inspiration for my book. But I think like when you're talking about that, a lot of the concepts that she talks about in that book go back to kind of like what I was saying earlier, where it's like showing players on your team what type of behavior you really want your team to be represented by. In other words, like she has a great chapter where she's talking about like parents and raising kids. And she uses the example of one parent or one set of parents that's always praising the young athlete on the results. Man, you scored so many points today. Man, you played so great in the game. And the other family, which is focusing on the behaviors that resulted in the points. And I'm not talking about having a great jump shot or, great penalty kicks. I'm talking about, wow, like, you played great today. I guess you showing up at the gym at 6 a.m. for that extra hour of practice is really paying off, right? Well, like if you're commending young athletes on the result, then they're only geared towards the result. And what happens is then they don't get that specific result, and now they viewed it as everything as a failure. Right? I didn't score 30 points. Like Coach Burke's not going to like me, or he's not going to give me the same praise. And this is why you see a lot of super talented athletes not succeed at the college level or the high school level, even though everybody sees them in high school and is like at the professional level, even though everybody sees them in high school and is like, oh, this kid is can't miss prospect. Well, it's because they're so far superior to everybody that they've never dealt with failure. And then they go to the next level and their entire mindset is, I don't want to challenge myself because I don't want to fail in practice or in the game. Oh, this knee injury that I maybe could play through. Maybe I don't want to play this game because, UMass is coming in here and they're top 10 and I don't want to have to play this guy. And they start making excuses because they don't want to really test themselves because they don't want to score less than 30 points or whatever. Right? Now you've created an athlete or an individual whose entire mental construct of what it is to be successful in their sport is driven just by the results. And like, if we're talking about high school sports, yeah, we want to win, but like that has very little to do with what it means to be a high school coach specifically. Right? You are trying to teach young men and women what it means to be successful, the type of dedication and work ethic that it takes, the type of teammate that you have to be, the type of resiliency and ability to bounce back in those moments of adversity or specifically in those moments of failure. Right? And so are you commending them on scoring 30 or are you commending them on the effort that they gave in practice? Right? Oh, can you do both of these things? Yes. For me, and like when I look, again, I'm doing this series on these great coaches. You know what the common theme is when you look at great coaches? They never talk about winning, ever. Now, what do they talk about? They talk about all of the other stuff that leads to winning, right? They talk about showing up at practice. They talk about showing up in class. They talk about showing up to the meeting and taking notes. They talk about giving great effort on the practice field, on and on and on, right? But they never sit there and say, hey, this is how we win the game. And I referenced Coach Gans earlier, and I remember I can still hear it today. We would be watching film in the film room, entire team, and he'd go, hey, what's the score here? What's the score? Who knows what the score is? Silence in the room. He's like, it doesn't matter what the score is. I'm talking about playing at our highest level. I don't care what the score is. I don't care if we're down 40. I don't care if we're up 40. I'm talking about playing at our highest level today, this play right here. And I think like that is the type of mentality that you are trying to build in young athletes and really anybody, right? Now, the results will come. The score will take care of itself, as Bill Walsh says. Focusing on those things that actually lead to the results that you want is what coaches should be emphasizing and focusing on when it comes to coaching.
Again, you've got me fired up because I'm hearing these great coaching quotes and just quotes in general. And
no, I'm gonna have to clean my screen off after this, dude. I'm spitting all over the place. I'm getting so fired up.
You know, one of the very first books I read when I started my coaching journey was based on the movie When the Game Stands Tall. And Bob Ladouceur quote, "We don't ask you to be perfect all the time, but we ask you to give a perfect effort all the time."
Yes.
I don't know if that was an actual quote. It was in the book. It was in the movie. Love it. You give that perfect effort and the score will take care of itself. And that's why they won something like 102 straight games. So building off of that, in your book, you mentioned Jim Mora and defining the different levels of competitors. How could a high school or youth coach utilize that scale of different competitors?
Yeah, I think like what I was referring to in the book is like when you're in these highly achievement oriented environments, you just tend to accumulate and kind of like build these teams full of high performing individuals, right? A lot of dominant personalities, a lot of alpha personalities, if you will. And to get into those rooms, period, whether you're passing out Chick-fil-A's as a student assistant or whether you are a coach or whether you are a player, those are hard rooms to get into. And like in large, everybody there had to be some level of a competitor pretty much to get into that room. Let's just say 90+%, if not 95+% of the people to get in that room. And so I think that was a way to kind of, if everybody's a competitor, you can't just say, oh, we're all elite competitors and kind of like put it to bed. It is kind of like at that level, what you are trying to do is you are trying to find different threads to pull on to get people that have achieved a lot already to aim even higher than they've already aimed and get them to desire to push harder and push farther than they've already pushed, right? And so I think a lot of it is also kind of like letting them know, like, yes, like your mindset, your competitive level, your talent has gotten you into this room, but what got you here won't get you there. And like, if you want to truly be an elite competitor, and again, this kind of speaks to a lot of the things in my book around intangibles, like Tom Brady was not supposed to be this great quarterback, right? Drew Bledsoe, who he replaced in New England, was supposed to have Tom Brady's career, right? Drew Bledsoe's 6'6", he's 240, he's the number one pick in the draft, he's got a golden arm, he is built to be the greatest quarterback of all time. He's the highest paid player in NFL history in the year 2001. So like, how on earth does, like dangly Tom Brady replace Drew Bledsoe, right? How on earth does that happen? And there's a lot that goes into that, right? There's kind of like who represents what the new coaching regime wants to build, who's having success, who's really kind of the future of this franchise, all of the financial implications. There's a whole lot built into that. But you don't get rid of basically the greatest pro quarterback prospect in the history of the game since John Elway if you don't have an elite competitor lined up behind him. And like Tom Brady is he's my favorite athlete. I think there's a whole lot of things to like about him. And obviously, if you're not a New England fan, a whole lot to hate. But like, you have to have a tremendous amount of respect for where he came from and like what he was able to do with his one opportunity. And like, what I think a lot of people don't understand is like that elite mindset is completely uncommon. Like, if we are looking at quarterbacks and we are looking at Tom Brady and Drew Bledsoe, it is non-negotiable. Like, it is not a competition. There is nobody better except for John Elway on this planet than Drew Bledsoe when it comes to quarterback play. So how on earth does Tom Brady replace him, right? And so I think like when we start talking about like these elite types of mindsets. It's easy to throw out Mamba mentality, but it's not easy to show up for 4 workouts a day for 15, 20 off seasons in a row. Like it's borderline insanity. Being in the room is great. That's one level of competitor. Becoming a freshman who never steps on the field to being a junior and a senior who's now a contributing member of a high school team or a college team is a tremendous accomplishment. But the difference between that and being this elite competitor is, again, exponential. And so you need a way to kind of motivate these people in these environments and let them know that nobody here is a finished product and nobody here has made it. And I think that's where that kind of like highlighting this different levels of competitor came from.
Again, you're talking and I'm painting pictures in my head. And when I was in college, well, let me preface by saying I was recruited to play football. And now I coach basketball. Love playing football. Was 6 foot, 270 pounds, offensive or defensive lineman.
Heck yeah.
And, I'm like, you know what? I'm going to throw in the towel. I'm going to become a casual fan. I'm going to sit there every Sunday and scream at the TV and tell those guys what they did wrong. But I started coaching some basketball and working with some players who wanted to go play in college. And my advice to them was always, they're coming from a small town and everybody says, hey, you're really good. You could go and play with the best of them. And then you don't get the calls from the best of them. So then my challenge to them was always go somewhere that's going to push you. Like you said, you're going to be in that room with those guys and you can be a competitor just because you're in the room, but are you going to be better? Are you going to go and put in those workouts and, okay, you work out hard, but that guy's working out harder and you're competing against guys who are better than you. It's going to make you a better player.
Yeah.
Building on that growth mindset, being that competitor, you work day in, day out, you become maybe not a starter by the time you're a senior, but you're at a high level college, you come off the bench, 6th, 7th guy. That's good. That is good from where you came from. Just to interject here, not really on the topics that we're on, but I've been thinking about it as we've been talking back and forth, and we're talking about these high level coaches. There's one that you've talked about a lot. His longtime go-to was Tom Brady. He was at New England. He's now at North Carolina. Bill Belichick. What he was in the NFL might be different than who he is at the college level, but college football has a brand of its own. There's a level of expectations that could be hard to obtain. I don't know if you've watched the TV show on Netflix, Any Given Saturday in the SEC.
I have not.
Okay, well, if you have time, check that out.
Okay.
I find it hilarious because one week you're on top of the world. You just beat Mississippi State. The next week you lose to Alabama and they're calling for your head. So,
I've lived that.
Yeah, I'm sure. Yeah. Back to the original point, just kind of lighten things up here. How do you think things will go in year one for Bill Belichick?
Yeah. So I might as well just mention, like, I'm a huge Bill Belichick fan. And, I reference Tom Brady a lot. I reference Coach Belichick a lot. And I get more comments on mentioning those two individuals than anything else I talk about, right? It's definitely a lightning bolt topic of, like, how many Super Bowls did he win without Tom Brady? And like all this BS. And the reality is there are 0 Hall of Fame head coaches in the Hall of Fame that didn't coach a Hall of Fame player. So you can point fingers all you want, but like, look, I'm a culture coach. So Tom Brady's great. You cannot tell me if Tom Brady ends up in Oakland in 2001 that he's going to turn into this amazing player. I just don't believe it. I believe that being a great leader is creating culture and creating environments where people can excel and blow the top off their potential. And that's exactly what he did. And nobody else did that, right? Like, he created those circumstances. Now, is Tom Brady like the perfect vessel for like being a young quarterback and having an awesome defense and all these other things, right? But like, to sit here and talk about like we're thinking about Tom Brady as like, the Hall of Fame quarterback. Like, I remember watching Tom Brady when I was in college, and like this guy was, he was not a great quarterback, to be quite honest. So it's like, I'm a huge Bill Belichick fan. And I think like what he's going to do, my predictions for like his time at North Carolina, specifically this year, is I think they're going to be successful. I have no idea what type of personnel they have, but I can tell you this, just knowing that him and their general manager, Michael Lombardi, I know that they care about character. I know that they're going to be looking for the intangibles in some of these players. I know that one of the things that they're going to be looking for is players that can be coached hard. And asking those questions. I mean, I've sat in those rooms. You'd be shocked at the questions that are not asked in those rooms. Coaches will sit there and they'll talk about, well, this kid's 6'2" and 5'8". Well, coach, if he was 6'4", we'd offer him. But like, I don't know. Yeah, his butt's kind of small. Yeah, but he's got size 17 shoes. It's like all this bullshit that means nothing. But what they don't talk about is like, hey, what type of work ethic do you think he learned from his parents? Hey, we're going to be in this kid's face every freaking day because we need this kid to start in the next 20 games, right? Can this kid handle tough coaching? Can he handle us? Can we see this kid playing in the next year and a half? Like those type of questions, believe it or not, are not really asked in those rooms. And I only encountered a handful of coaches that I felt really did a great job of recruiting and like asking those types of questions. Bill Belichick and Michael Lombardi are going to ask those questions of players that are coming into the North Carolina football team. I have no idea about the talent, but obviously I don't care about the talent. I'm assuming that if they're playing in North Carolina, that they're good enough to play. I don't even know are they in the ACC? I don't even know what league they're in. Yeah. But I'll tell you this, a lot of games are lost because coaches are not detail oriented and they're not good in the critical moments of the game in what I would call special situations. And I would outside of Nick Saban at Alabama, I would say that this North Carolina football team over the next however many years Belichick is in charge is going to be the most prepared team for those special situations as any team in the nation, maybe any team that has ever played college football outside of those Nick Saban Alabama teams. There's just a level of detail that is paid attention to that you don't see, quite honestly, across the landscape in college football. And a lot of these coaches are not hired because of that. They're hired because they're the young, flashy offensive coordinator, or they had success at the big school before, or whatever. They're not hired because of their plan and their attention to detail. And I think that's a place that Bill Belichick is going to really create a competitive advantage. I don't know how many games they're playing this year, but I would guess more. I would put them down for more than 8 or 9 wins.
Well, we'll see on Saturday. The kicks off. You talk about these questions that coaches aren't asking. I thought of draft day. Would anybody show up to a player's birthday party? Would Drew Bledsoe show up to Tom Brady's birthday party? Would Rob Ninkovich show up to his birthday party? It seems like a silly question. It seemed like if you've seen the movie Draft Day, it's a silly question, but it goes back to finding those intangible things. Got a couple more questions here, and it really builds off that last one on North Carolina, but overarching the entire conversation. In your book, you talk about the elimination business. Sometimes high school youth coaches, maybe even college coaches, are cautious about cutting a bad apple from the team. At the high school and youth levels, what do you think would be a good procedure to cut a bad apple from the team? And I've got a little example here. For example, player A has a poor attitude. They are somewhat apprehensive of the role, but they play. Their attitude and excitement in practice and in games is low. You've had regular conversations with the player. Captains have had conversations, but overall, the player's attitude is holding your team back. What do you do?
Number one is you have to understand the environment you exist in. If you are in the high school setting, there are certain limitations to what you can do and what you can't do. And I have no idea what those are, but if you're a leader in those environments, you need to know. And I guess like specifically what I'm thinking about is like, can you just cut a kid? If you cut a kid, are you going to have parents and et cetera, in your office, whatever? Like, you need to understand that. And I think that's really important for leaders to understand, right? Like what are the consequences? What type of environment do I live in? That's number one. But number two, you need to like understand like, okay, well, like if I can make a decision, let's just say this decision is getting rid of this player, like, am I confident in it? Can our team survive? Can our team still be successful? I guess like, is your question more aimed at like, how do you deal with somebody who's a contributor but not bought in? Or are they the star player that's not bought in? What is the...
Yeah, I would say more or less a contributor.
Yeah, I mean, for me, like I'm setting high standards day one. I'm letting the team know what our core values are and what our habits are, and that you need to get in line. And anybody that doesn't get in line, like quite honestly, isn't going to play and probably not going to be a part of the team, right? Now, like, can you get rid of somebody? Can you not? Like, okay, well, like, I may not be able to get rid of you, but you're not playing. Oh, you're a contributor, but like, we don't really have anybody else that can play defense or rebound or, guard bigs or what. It's like, I don't care. Like, every decision that you make is in alignment with having the best team culture you can have, right? Now, are you about to get fired? Oh, okay. So like now this guy needs to play. This girl needs to play. Okay, so now you're making decisions based on short-term results and not the long-term, sustaining long-term success within your program. Well, you're screwed anyway, right?
Yep.
So I guess you've already made your decision. But to me, I don't make decisions based on short-term results. Everything that I do is aligned with the culture that I'm trying to create. And even if I was up against the wall like that, my mentality wouldn't be, well, I got to save my butt. It's going to be, well, I need to get this bad apple out of here, because if I'm going to be here for the next decade, like I'm not going to have this young man or woman infect all the other young people behind. And also I'm going to establish a environment where it's going to be next man or next woman up. It's not always just, play this one individual or we're screwed as a coaching staff. I'm into contingency planning. So I would probably do everything I could in terms of positive peer pressure to make sure that that individual understood that whatever they were doing or were not doing that was in alignment with the culture was not what was going to keep them there or keep their playing time. Ultimately, like when I'm faced with situations or people ask me about this, I always side on the side of culture. So my response is always to get rid of that individual. You either buy in or you're out of here. It's a lot easier to do that in week one of your head coaching stint than it is in year 3. But like, that is always how I make my decisions. It is always driven by culture. It is never driven by the talent of an individual or the results that it could yield this week. Like, you're just prolonging a problem. And I don't believe in that. I believe in attacking problems. And a problem is anything that prevents us from performing at our highest level. And this individual not buying in or not doing what I tell them to do or the coaching staff tells them to do is a problem. And we attack problems now, not later.
I agree. I was going to say, I think it goes back to your attacking problems when you're establishing those core values, those standards of your culture. At the collegiate level, at those professional levels, you can say, okay, this is it. I'm done. I'm not dealing with this. You're gone. You get one chance, maybe 2 chances. At the high school level and youth levels, I think it's got to be, okay, we're here. If you don't correct here and we have to address this a second time, now we're getting into, maybe that 3 strikes, you're out kind of situation.
Yeah, I think that's like to each individual coach. And again, the atmosphere they exist in, right? Like you see this in corporate too. Like sometimes you can't just get rid of somebody. You got to write them up. You got to like send them to HR, like all this other stuff, right? So it's like, if you live in that environment, well, then you live in that environment and you've got to follow that protocol. And Of course, it would probably be similar to what you just described in a lot of high school environments.
But you have to attack it. If you just let it slide, then strap in for mediocrity.
Absolutely. Yes. Are we talking about playing at the highest level here? Or are we talking about doing whatever we can so we can get a short-term result? Like, again, I don't believe in fixed mindset. Like, I'm all about growth mindset, and I'm not even like driven by results. So like to me, like, you just have to make those decisions. Like, it goes back to who you are as a coach and what type of program you want to have. And like, the moment that you start compromising what your culture is about and what you're about as a leader, you've already started to lose. Yeah. So like, I'm not going down that path. Like if I'm getting fired, I'm not getting fired because, Jojo Two Shoes over here won't do what I tell him to do, but I feel like I got to play him. Like I'm rolling with the freshman that is 5 inches shorter, but is going to like give me everything. And that's how I roll. So,
yeah, I, I hear a lot of stories from a lot of coaches. The senior comes to me, coach, why is the freshman starting over me? And they, in the story that they tell, it's like, well, they sugarcoat it. But then when they talk to their coaches in their inner circles, it's like, well, maybe because you didn't show up to practice on time and you complain all the time. And that's why the freshman's starting over you as a senior. It's like, well, is that what you told that senior, or did you sugarcoat it? Because, I mean, you just got to attack the problem. Say this, and this. That's why you're not starting. Don't like it, do better.
Yeah, this goes back to transparent environments and like what
Yeah.
you're creating as a leader. And if you've created environments where you sugarcoat things or you hide things from individuals, like how do you expect them to get better? Like you must attack problems. You must let people know when they are meeting your expectations and meeting the standards, and you must let them know when they are not meeting the standards in extremely clear and concise language, and sometimes confrontational language, right?
Yeah, I can guarantee you that when my boss has a problem with what I'm doing, it's not sugarcoated. At the end of the day, I know it's not that bad, but he's just trying to make an extra point to me to, I don't know, make an example because he knows I can handle it. I don't know. Moving on here, I've got a two-part question here as we wrap things up. Your book, you're talking about recruiting players or scouting players as the organization wanting to bring a high-level player in. On the flip side, what advice do you have for the high school athlete who's going through the recruiting process? And then what advice would you give the coaches who should be helping that athlete through the recruiting process? And I mean, you've got to take a lot into account now because the recruiting process from high school into college, vastly different with the transfer portal and all of that. So again, what advice would you give player and then their coach who's should be helping them through that?
What I would tell a player is number one, you need to have self-awareness of who you are. It really doesn't do anybody any good. And like, this is the biggest problem I saw when I was helping people through the recruiting process is like, you have to understand where you fit in the ecosystem. Like your whole life might have been to play for the Notre Dame football team or to play for the SMU football team. But like, if you're not a Division I athlete, it's very unlikely that's going to happen. And like, the quicker you come to that realization, the better. Because I've seen a lot of people waste a lot of time and pass up on opportunities that could have been really beneficial for them or maybe helped get a lot of school paid for because they felt like, well, I'm here. Well, like, honestly, recruiting is just a competitive marketplace. And like, if you haven't established yourself in high school to be a recruited Division I athlete, like you're probably going to have to establish that somewhere else. Right? Like it's not just going to happen once you hit the recruiting process. So I think like self-awareness is really important. At the same time, like I don't agree or I don't want to put limits on anybody, right? Like if your whole dream is to like play, let's say at a specific place, like you should pursue that. But saying like, oh, I want to play Division I football. Well, there's a ton of places you can play Division I football. But like if you grew up in Texas and your whole life has been like geared towards playing for like a Texas university, like you could probably make that happen as a walk-on, right? But for you to stand there and say, well, we want $100,000 and a scholarship, it's like, if you don't fit in that marketplace, I've seen a lot of people hurt themselves by not acknowledging that. The second thing that I would say to a young athlete is know what you want. And I was kind of just alluding to this, right? Saying things like, oh, I want to play Division I college football. Well, like, yeah, that's great. But like, what do you envision for yourself? Like, what type of environment do you want to be a part of? Like, what when you're talking about that experience, what type of coaches are you around? What type of teammates are you around? Do you understand that if you grow up your whole life in Texas and you go to college outside the state of Texas and you just come back to Texas, that basically you have an entire network of people that don't live in the state that you're going to end up in, right? And I'm just saying that because I grew up in Texas and I went to school in Colorado. And like, I love my Colorado peeps, but like, I don't live in Colorado and I haven't lived there since college. Right. So like, there's nothing wrong with that. But do you understand that as a 17 or 18-year-old making that decision? Do you understand the ramifications of that? Again, these aren't big things, but these are just things that you need to like be thinking about. Everybody gets caught up in the money, they get caught up in the scholarship, they get caught up in where they're trying to go. Again, don't focus on the results, focus on like what you want that experience to be. And then it's a lot easier to find what that experience is. Well, I'm really proud to be a part of a program at SMU called Life After Ball. I run the workshop professional development series for them, where we put on a series of workshops that basically prepare athletes for the real world. And a lot of programs don't do that. Even like huge programs don't have Life After Ball programs that SMU does. And I think that's a tremendous thing that they provide to their student athletes. And if you're making a decision on where to go to college, like, is that something you want? Or do you just want them to have like the College Career Center where Nancy and her 14 people work under her and whatever, right? Nancy's there's no Nancy, but like,
Right.
like, what are you like, or do you want a place that actually like gives you something tangible as you're going off into the next level, blah, 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 blah. Everybody focuses on like the playing, the money. And I'm sure the money is just like a ridiculous factor now in terms of clouding these decisions. But I would get super clear on like what experience, what you're really looking for in a coaching staff, what you're looking for in an educational experience, what you're looking for from that school. And then if it aligns with you being a Division I player or you playing at Notre Dame, awesome. That's great, right? Like, this is what I wanted and I'm good enough to play here. But there's other schools that are comparable to those places that you think you want to go to that you just haven't considered because like you're just an 18-year-old kid and you just don't know any better. The other thing that I would say if you're a coach is, I mean, that's a great question. I would probably, if I had to say one thing, it would be an advocate for your players. Don't kill any dream. There's a way to tell me as a coach what I'm looking for without killing a kid, right? Now, like, I have ways to find that out as a college recruiter, right? Like I can go to the academic counselor. I did this plenty of times. And I was like, yeah, you're Jacob's academic counselor. What's Jacob like as a, to deal with day to day? Oh, Jacob is challenging. Oh, Jesus. Okay. Well, I got 25 receivers I'm looking at. Not sure I want challenging to be a way. Like, I don't care how good you are. You're not that good. You are not that good. Anyway. I'm getting fired up and I'm jumping all over the place. But like, I have ways to find that out as a college recruiter. That should not come from the high school coach. So like, I just don't believe in kind of like killing kids' dreams. But there's ways that you can kind of be like, yeah, coach, like, being a captain here is a really big deal. I notice Jacob's not a captain. Why is that? Well, I don't quite know why that is. I mean, Jacob shows up every day. He does great. He's been great here. But, that's something that we hold in high regard here and the kids vote on that and blah, 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 blah. Right. Like, you don't have to say like, coach, he's a piece of shit. And that, your job is to like help create opportunities. Obviously, certain coaches have certain relationships and they can find that information out. But I just believe in being a supporter for young athletes. I don't know. It's a tough question. Because I think of it from like the college recruiter standpoint. I guess I didn't sit that much in the high school offices as a high school coach, but it's interesting to think about. I'm not saying that a lot of coaches kill kids in the recruiting process. I'm just very much an optimist, and I believe in building people up and giving them the opportunities.
I agree. I always felt that whether I was training players or coaching them like I am now, I just need to be a billboard for that player. Any player that comes to me. In any sport that they want to go and play in college, I will write a raving review about a player, or I'm always going to say something positive about them. If it's 100% true, it's going to be a really great review. If it's okay, they're just a good player, they're still going to get a good review. I'm not going to say anything negative that's going to hurt them. Now, because I think those things sort themselves out. If a player makes a visit and they're talking to you, I think that's where those things sort themselves out. It's what I call the wanna factor versus the want to factor. Do you want to do something? Do you want to do something like Like me, yeah, I want to go play football in college. Or, yeah, I want to play football in college. Like, I'm going to do whatever I have to do to get there. Versus, yeah, I want to do it. I think
Oh,
it'd be
yeah.
cool. I get to be on a college roster, or I'm living this dream. That's why
Yeah.
I think some of the numbers of where it shows your odds of playing in college, or one in however many high school football players there are. Well, I think that's a little skewed, because does every single high school football player want to go and play in college? Probably not, but I don't know.
Yeah, I can tell you a lot don't.
Yeah.
I mean, like, this is a question that the best coaches ask, which is like, does this player love being a player, or does he love football? And that's a really, really important question that college coaches, or anybody that's evaluating anybody, right? Because it's like, yeah, who wouldn't want to be a college football player? Who wouldn't want to be a pro football player? But a lot of players love being players, but they don't love playing.
Yeah.
It's a big difference.
Stark difference.
Yeah.
Coach, taking a lot of your time tonight. I appreciate all of it. One final question for you. Where can coaches or leaders find you on social media?
You can find me on YouTube. I'm posting a lot of content there right now. Just on, like I said, Leading Like a Legend. I'm doing a championship leadership case study series right now through the end of the year that I'm really proud of. And you can find me on YouTube. I'm at Coach Evan Burke, and pretty much at Coach Evan Burke on any social media, but I'll be posting mainly on YouTube.
Awesome. I'll be sure to check that out. I loved your book, Finding Intangibles. If you ever write another one, let me know. I will buy it immediately. Coach,
I appreciate your support, man.
You're welcome. And I appreciate your time tonight. An hour and a half of just fantastic information. I love and appreciate it.
Jacob, thank you so much for having me, man.
Coaches, thank you for listening to the United Basketball Plus Coaching and Leadership Podcast. For all things United Basketball Plus, visit us at our website, www.unitedbasketballplus.com, or on X at UnitedBBallPlus.